Welcome to Passport Required. I'm Kim Covert, owner and lead travel designer at Silverleaf Travel.
And I'm Gary Covert. Together, we are on a mission to help experienced travelers and would-be travelers get even more informed, inspired, and get moving so that they can enjoy great travel experiences and make memories that will last.
We believe that travel offers so many opportunities to improve the quality of our lives. Travel helps us learn more about the world, ourselves, and those closest to us. It keeps us vibrant, fresh, and connected, and travel helps us celebrate life.
We invite you to join the Silverleaf Travel Facebook page so that we can amplify our impact and help people get off of and stay off of what we'd like to call Someday Island.
We know you're going to love this episode, so let's get after it. Welcome to Passport Required. Thank you for joining us for another exciting episode. We're talking about our trip on Riverside Luxury Cruises on the Rhone River in the south of France.
Yes.
We just got back from.
I'll be honest. I had so much fun telling people where we were going. It sounded so bougie and fancy. It's like, hey, where are you going? Oh, we're going to the south of France for 2 weeks. It felt nice to say leaving, and it felt really nice to say coming back.
And nice that we were going on a nice luxurious river cruise line.
100%. 100%. So yeah, I'm really excited to be talking about this and kind of doing a review between the two of us of what we thought about it. I thought we would just approach this in 4 parts. Let's talk about our itinerary, then talk about our experiences, then talk about the ship itself and our accommodations with our hotels, and then overall impressions. Sound like a plan for you?
Sounds like a great plan.
All right. So maybe explain to folks that are listening, where did we go? We said the south of France. Let's be specific.
This was Riverside Luxury Cruises on the Rhone River. For this particular itinerary, we started in Lyon, France, which was wonderful. Started there, then went all the way down to Arles, came back up to Avignon, and ended in Avignon, got off the ship. So it was a nice 7-night leisure itinerary.
Yeah, with a couple small town stops in between, which we will get into.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it was a really wonderful trip. So the Rhone River connects with the Mediterranean. It basically goes north and south and follows, I learned there, basically the Roman road going north into what they called Gaul, France at that point, and as part of their colonization of the Gallic tribe. So
isn't he so smart?
Well, I get that way by listening and regurgitating. So if you call that smart, okay, I'll take it. Yes. Those were basically the overall where we went. Let's go a little bit more detail into each town that we went in, and we'll just cover some of the highlights.
Okay.
So let's do that.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about this itinerary. We flew into Lyon. They have a major airport there. We ended up coming in a few days early. I mean, I always recommend to my clients to come in at least one day, but for international flights, it's good to come in 2 or 3 days early to get adjusted, get rested up from the flight. So we ended up coming in a couple nights early and stayed in Lyon at the most amazing hotel. So we had some time to see the city before we got on the ship, which was nice.
Yeah. So that was, and just a small little tidbit, you said it is a major airport in Lyon. It was, but it was like one of the fanciest. I felt like it was like in the VIP area of an airport.
Yeah.
It's small, tidy, put together, not overwhelming. It was a nice little airport. I would have liked to have gone back out of it. Instead, we went through Marseille, which is not that. That is a chaotic mess. But yeah, Lyon was a nice little airport itself. And then the town. It
reminded me a little bit of Budapest. We talked about this, a little bit about Budapest. I know it doesn't have like the hills on one side and the flat city on the other, but it is a city that has the river, actually 2 rivers, running through it. So it's the Rhone and the Saône. There's a little peninsula in between the 2 rivers, and about, I don't know, maybe 5 miles down the road, they connect back into one river, into the Rhone. So you have these almost like 2 towns. It's the same town, but it's neat. You have the old town, and then you have the new town on one side. And it's a very walkable city, easy to navigate.
Yeah, I love that. So it really is a river town, and all the towns that we're going to be talking about are river towns. And so they all had a very beautiful vista along, or promenade along the side of the river. And this was our first introduction to a common theme of going through each of these towns is that there is a Roman history
Mm-hmm.
and there is a medieval history. So in almost every town, there's an arena or an amphitheater or a theater or some remnant or a temple, some remnant, and some are quite substantial of the Roman culture. And then their medieval history built on top of that. So really, really interesting. And yeah, Lyon was just a beautiful, approachable city. We traveled with a couple other couples on this particular itinerary. And that was a common theme. The people just really love the city.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful and just approachable. The first morning after we got in there that evening, we're walking around and there was an event going on with kids rollerblading, and not just kids, but kids and adults rollerblading throughout the city, just like a running event. And it was the coolest thing to see. That's just not something you really see here in the States too much, rollerblading as a sport.
Absolutely.
Or speed skating. And, they were just going through the streets, doing their speed skating kind of deal. And to see these young kids, I mean, the skates were nearly as big as they were.
Yeah, and they were fast.
They were
athletes.
Yeah. So that was a fun thing, and I really felt like it had a lot of culture going for it. And of course, we were just there a few days, so it's hard for us to really see what's going on in the city. But yeah, it is a beautiful city, easy to walk around. It's got a ton of bridges, so you can just go around that river, up and down the river, crossing bridges, and just really have a good time. It's a feature that makes the city very, very beautiful and attractive. Had a really good time there. Yeah.
And it's a good jumping off spot. One of the couples that was traveling with us went to Paris first, and then they took the train, high speed train, 2.5 hours to Lyon. Very easy. So then the next day we got up, and since only one couple was with us at that time, the other couple was still in Paris. The four of us took a private tour that I had arranged, and we went out to the Beaujolais region. And that was a great, great day. It was fun to do it with somebody else too. But the countryside is just beautiful. I mean, everything you can imagine with the vineyards on the hills and beautiful estates. And they first took us to a farmer's market, which I always find interesting that tour guides do this.
Yes.
Where it's all vegetables and fresh food. I don't know really what we're going to do with all this. We're not going to go our own dinner that night.
Look at that tomato.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see how the locals do their shopping and to see their local produce, and they're very proud of it. And we had a private wine and cheese tasting there upstairs, overlooking the food
wine,
market.
cheese, and sausages.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we had the sausages too. That was really great.
Yeah.
And then they took us out to a vineyard where we had lunch first. And what did we have for lunch?
We had, this is memorable, we had a savory waffle with some sort of fresh cheese on top of it and a couple big slices of sausages,
some sort.
Yeah. This was my first introduction to this concept because I had zero expectation. Well, it's very agricultural and it's very foodie and it's very winey. There's more grapes growing around that I had seen anywhere.
It's magnificent.
Just everywhere. And they're so beautiful to see and certainly good to taste. But yeah, we had a great afternoon there. And the food was just always on point. They really cared about freshness. That came up so often. And they wanted to know exactly where their food came from. They really valued, the location of the cheese and the meats and things like that. They're very particular about the different kinds of sausages. I even remember one of the sausages we tasted, they described it as what they call the Jesus sausage because it's the size of a little baby.
Little baby Jesus.
It's just a big fat sausage. They call it the Jesus sausage. So anyway,
that was
I digress a little bit, but I did want to make that point that was just for me one of the feels that I got from this experience was that it's just a very foodie but not pretentious experience that going through this entire region. And we have a couple other experiences that we'll share as we go through, but that was my first introduction. It's like, okay, we're in Beaujolais. Everybody knows Beaujolais. And the wines were terrific. The food that went with it was just like on point. And this wasn't a super fancy place. It was just a very nice place. And the food was on point and they really cared about their food and, just but the food was so approachable, like the city of Lyon. And why is Lyon famous for French people?
It's the gastronomical capital of France.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
expect the food to be good, and it didn't disappoint.
Yes. Yes. So to give a little bit more specificity, so we went to a bouchon. So a bouchon is, I couldn't follow the entire bouncing balls, but it's a
Like a local
cuisine that was related to the textile workers who used to work there. So I think that Lyon used to be a silk town.
Yes.
But anyway, so this is what those workers would typically eat. And, it was good, but I guess it was a good introduction to me to the concept that they're very proud about French and France and food. And there are more than one time we had menus that we went to a restaurant and the menu was impenetrable. Hard to guess, even with Google Translate.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out.
Your expectations will be subverted. Whatever you think you're going to get is going to be a little different. But anyway, we had a great time there. And consistently, we had great wine every time. I mean, you could just order anything and buy the glass. You didn't have to buy bottles or anything like that. Yes. All right. So let's get back to our itinerary. So we spent a couple nice days in Lyon, and then we went where?
But yeah, we had a couple days in Lyon, and then it was time to board the ship. My favorite time of day.
Yes.
Get on board.
It's like Christmas.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. It's Christmas that might come at 3:00 in the afternoon.
Absolutely. Grab the glass of champagne that they hand you and check in, and they walk you to your room. They take your bags and they show you everything in the room and how everything works. And you're just looking around at all this beauty and just very excited about the upcoming week. And it was great. So we had time to unpack and relax for a second. Then we all met, because all 6 of us were now in town and on board. We all met in the bar and started cheering to the week.
Yeah. Getting to know our bartenders.
Yes.
One thing that popped in my head as you're talking about that is that for people that are not familiar with the river cruise experience, it's like you're right in the city. You are where we were moored was along a very busy sidewalk path, and a lot of people are riding their bikes up and down. And then just across from that, there was this workout facility. They just had all these monkey bars and things, and all these guys were super ripped and had their shirts off and doing pull-ups and sit-ups and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, I need to get back in the gym. but anyway, the reason I bring that up is that you are not in some faraway port that's a 45-minute taxi ride from something. If once you've had your cocktail and you've seen your room, you're like, hey, I want to go back out. You're back in.
Exactly.
You're back in.
And we were lucky enough to be able to have an itinerary where the ship stayed in port overnight. So that was nice. We didn't have any time frame to get on the ship or come back to the ship if you go off the ship to go look around the city. So it was nice. You can relax. If you wanted to go to dinner out in the city, you could. So we had a whole nother day the next day in Lyon, but we unpacked once and can see so much.
And we're finally out of the hotel zone.
Yeah.
I'd like to be unpacked.
Yes. So the next day we were still in Lyon. So through the cruise line, you can choose to book excursions or tours, or you can do them on your own, either way. But we chose to book all our excursions through the cruise line. So the first morning we had a nice walking tour of the city and the basilica. And I apologize in advance for this entire podcast massacring the French language.
Oh yeah,
I apologize.
From us to the entire French nation and Francophiles worldwide, we do apologize.
So we went to the Fourvray Basilica. Sorry, again, bad. And we did go walk over and look at the Roman amphitheater, which they still use today. They were setting up for a concert.
Yes,
which was really interesting. These 2,000-year-old amphitheater with old stone steps and everything, and they're still using them today, which I don't think would happen in the US.
Yeah, and these things are huge. I mean, they can hold tens of thousands of people. Originally, they would hold like 20 or 30,000 people. This one was kind of interesting because it's way up on a hill. It's been there for 2,000 years, and for hundreds of years it was buried. Fun fact. Remember that? She was telling us it was buried and they just uncovered it in like the last
100 years.
Yeah, 100 years or something. They had this big mound. It's like, we should probably dig that thing out and see what's under there. And they did. And they've got this beautiful amphitheater or theater there. And then it's right up there on top of the hill with the basilica.
That basilica
Oh,
was
do you remember
beautiful.
the difference between a basilica and
Oh no,
a
you're gonna
cathedral?
oh no.
Oh, here comes the test.
Pilgrimage.
Yes. Yes, you get the point. So a basilica is a point on a pilgrimage, and a cathedral, I think, has to have a bishop associated with it.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
where the
remember.
bishop is installed or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, this was not that. It's not a cathedral, but it is beautiful. And then we went down through the old town. And what's one of the key features of that old town? The passageways.
Oh, the troubles. They call them troubles, but they are fairly unmarked doors that you can open. Some of them you can open. And it's a pass through from one street to the next street because of the way that the city was built. They didn't have like north and south streets and east and west. So they made these troubles so that you can get from one main street to the next because they only had like two main streets. And that's how they would get their silk through the city. And then during the wars, that was how people escaped going through the troubles.
Yeah.
These doors.
Staying away from the German occupiers.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you would never know that they're there. But if you go with a guide, and if you don't have 50 other people with you, and it was just us, it was just the two of us and a guide, they would just, push on a door that looked like every other door, and suddenly you're going through something that looks very private, but they say, no, this is a public thoroughfare. It's like, okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And there's about 300 of them, but only about 50, I think they said, you can actually go through.
Yeah.
The others are definitely private.
And I would suggest a guide.
I would, because the first day we got there, we walked around on our own and we didn't know what we were looking at. We were just walking around, which was great. We stopped and had a crepe and, coffee, and it was nice, but we were looking at these buildings thinking there's got to be a history to these. I don't know, or where to go. And so when we came back with a guide, it just opened up your world and you just learned so much more about the city that you wouldn't know otherwise.
And those guides are very well trained, and there's some licensure that's required for them to call themselves a guide. And I think our ship went through the official tourism bureau locally every time. All of our guides were hyper local. It's like they lived there.
They grew up there
in the city, or they're just outside of it now. I mean, they really know their town. It's like they're taking you to their backyard, and their expertise really showed.
True. Yeah, they were really good. And they have to study a lot. It's not like just anybody can sign up to be a tour guide. So
yeah, they've got to know their history, which is long, and they've got to know their food. A lot of them really knew their wines very well because they knew that guests would be curious about those things.
True. In the afternoon, we went out to Perogi, which was a great medieval town with the very hard cobblestone streets. This wasn't just like normal cobblestone streets. They were hardcore because I don't know how to explain it. They weren't like connected. They were just like these stepping stones that you had to walk on.
It was very rough, like river rock.
Yeah, it was really hard to walk on, but a really charming town. Again, we had a tour guide take us around. So that was a nice afternoon. And also with these river cruises coming back to it, you have most of your meals on board. So when we say we did the walking tour in the morning, and then when we went out to Perogi in the afternoon, we're having breakfast, lunch, and dinner on the ship.
Yeah. They really plan it around getting you back in time to have a reasonable lunch, and then they want you back in time to have a reasonable time for dinner without being rushed or anything. Yeah.
Then the next day, the ship did depart Lyon, and we went and sailed to Vienne, not Vienna, Vienne. And it was another really great city right there on the river. The ship docked literally 100 feet from town. So we got off, walked across. We had another guide who took us around. There was probably about 15 of us in this group, or maybe 10. And he just did a quick walking tour. We didn't have a lot of time in Vienne, so it was just a quick walking tour, and it had a nice park. And it was a lovely day. But the six of us decided we're going to come back on board and have some cocktails.
Yep.
Because it was that kind of day. So it was nice. We just went back to the lounge and had some wine and champagne.
So Vienne, as I remember, it was for me like a typical Provençal town. Small, charming, looks pretty sophisticated. a couple Roman amphitheaters and things.
Had the remnants of the wall.
Yes.
That the buildings were built over them. That was
Mhm.
kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a common theme through all this. But then there were some instances where they showed like how big this city used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just a charming town. It was a Roman city back at that point, and was even larger and was just tremendously big and important all along this Roman road going north and south on the Rhone River. But it's a charming little town, nice shops everywhere, very approachable, easy to walk through,
Yeah,
and
it wasn't very big.
fun things to look at. Yes.
Then we had another wonderful dinner on board the ship. And then the next day we sailed to a town called Vivier. This was probably one of my favorite tours and favorite cities. Again, you're docked right there in the city. You walk off. We went down this beautiful tree-lined road. It ended up being one of the best tours we had.
Yes.
And the tour guide, she was British, but she was such a character and just brought the city to life for us. When you get off the ship, you can see a castle up on top of a hill. And she says, guess where we're going? Up there. And you're thinking, oh boy.
Top of the rock.
How many stairs do I have to climb to get to this sucker? She made it so easy going through the old town and just we wove our way through the old town as she's telling us stories about this building or that and just very animated. It was great. And so all of a sudden, and I mean, you are walking up an incline, but it wasn't very steep. And then all of a sudden you come around the corner and you're at the top of the hill.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
And a beautiful view from up there, of course, because you're at the top of the rock.
Yep.
And then we went into the cathedral. Again, another beautiful church. And
ABC.
And so we're in there and it's just our groups because there was two separate groups from our ship. So there was probably 15 of us, maybe the most. And we sit there and there's a woman standing there and she sang a performance for us, a opera performance. And
a selection of different opera arias and I think some contemporary songs because she did sing Amazing Grace.
Yeah, sure.
And which I loved. Sorry to interrupt, but I was so impressed by having this presentation. She was very skilled, but having somebody sing within a church brings it alive because they are built for acoustics.
Yeah.
They're built so that people can hear the words, they can hear the songs. And it just, when you hear somebody sing in a space like that, it's just...
It gave me goosepimples, and I think a couple people kind of got teared up. I might have been one of them.
Yeah.
Because you're just thinking, if these walls can talk, how many performances have been in here? How many speeches? How many sermons?
How many Christmas?
How many Christmas, everything, baptisms, and then the wars and the traumatic pieces. Like, it's just amazing to hear someone singing in that environment and it just brings it to life. Yeah. It was just spectacular.
Yeah, that was very, very special.
Very special just for us.
Yeah. And again, the guide, she was local. So we're walking through the town. She says, yeah, because people are always curious about real estate. So how much does it cost to live in this town? She says, well, I can tell you exactly. And we played the game of guess how many euros for that house. And she knew down to the euro because her friend had bought it.
Yes.
Yeah, that was great. And for me, that was also the first time to realize that there is another piece of history that runs through this where they talk about the religious wars. The religious wars are the wars of power between the Catholics and the Protestants. And they were bloody, bloody. So, you go through a lot of these churches, and if you're wondering where all the statues went that used to be in the alcoves or why that statue doesn't have a head anymore, Catholics versus Protestants.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you saw a lot of that.
Then after the performance, we went back to the ship, had another wonderful lunch. And then we went to the truffle farm, which I was very excited.
Okay, folks, but I think she won't get mad if I say this. She wasn't so excited about truffles. She was excited about truffle dogs.
I was excited about seeing the dog.
The truffle puppies, because they use dogs to go find these truffles. Yeah. So anyway, what is a truffle farm? What does it look like? And how is it set up?
It was beautiful. There are thousands of these oak trees, and the truffles grow at the roots of these oak trees. And this truffle farmer, who's fourth or fifth generation, had owned this farm, used these two labs to search for the truffles. He also was growing truffle trees, the oak trees, to then sell to other people who wanted to get into the truffle farming.
Yeah, around the world.
Yeah, so he had the little nursery there, and I think he said he grows like 80,000 trees or something. I was some astronomical number. He was really lovely to talk about what he does and how he does it. And then the dogs came out. They were so cute.
When the dogs came out, all the phones came out and people had taken videos of these dogs. I should have taken a video of you watching the dogs because you're like just dancing around.
If I had a tail, it would have been
wagging. Good point. Good point.
So one of the dogs came out and he had his bag, the bag that they put the truffles in his mouth. It was so cute. So they come out and they're working and they found truffles, and he showed us what they look like. And then we went back inside the home and they gave us a sample of shaved truffle on a little,
like a
little toasted point.
Toast point.
Yeah. And then some truffle oil we got to try. And he talked a little bit more about the whole production and how much he sells and where he sells it. And
anyway, I love truffles and they're just such a neat thing. And he was so generous with his samples. I mean, he just had this little shaver, like a Parmesan cheese shaver, to make the wide slices. And he would just load up a toast point, and it might be 4 or 5 truffle layers thick. And I looked at him and I said, so these are like $1,000 a kilogram, for a truffle. And he said, yeah. I said, how much would this cost if I were eating this in a restaurant in Paris? He just went, kind of did this French, and threw up his hands in there and did a little French thing. It's like a lot of money. It's like, okay, well,
that was very nice.
Load me up with another.
Yes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun.
And I don't like mushrooms, but I really enjoyed the truffles.
Yeah,
I was really open to trying that. So
yeah, and the truffle oil.
That was really, really good.
More concentrated taste, but I think it's more consistent. Yeah.
So that was a great day. That was a really busy day. That was great.
It was a busy day.
So came back the next day. We sailed to Tarascon, and we got there a little early. We weren't supposed to get there till kind of lunchtime, but we got there like 8 a.m. So Gary and I decided to grab the bikes. So they have e-bikes and regular bikes on board, and you can take them out on your own if you want. So we grabbed a couple e-bikes and headed out to a town we didn't know, which was kind of crazy. But we ended up finding the most beautiful, serene bike path. Yeah, well, it's kind of a little road that is shared with cars, but along this like aqueduct, and went for miles and miles. And we just did that for a while. And then we found another street. We went down and we found orchards and saw our first cherry tree ever. Never seen a cherry tree before. We saw olive trees, and it was gorgeous.
Yeah, it really brought home to me again just how agricultural this area is, and they are so proud about all their produce and things like that. But then you see like acres and acres of cherry trees, acres and acres of olive trees, and they all grow together. For some reason, it's like hot and cool enough for all those things. Then there's grapes like everywhere. So it's like all these things together. Yeah.
It was great. That was a great morning. So after our bike ride, we actually got to do a walking tour with a tour guide, and we went to the Tarascon Castle, and we got to walk around it and hear all the history behind this castle, which is in really, really good shape because it was used as a prison for many, like 300 years.
Yeah. The best way to preserve a building is to use it continuously.
Yes.
And it has been in continuous use as a seat of government, for people. And then for the last, I think, maybe a couple hundred years of its life, it was a prison. And there's prison graffiti all through the entire thing. And some of it pretty sad, some of it beautiful. But this Tarascon is an enormous pile of rock. And for me, really brought home just how clever the medieval builders were. I mean, you think about, that time, and maybe it's just me, you think about, maybe they're not as sophisticated as us or this or that. And, they're just kind of maybe ignorant. It's like, no, these people had real civilization and real skills to build these things that, are so high and so massive and have so many huge stones and, you're in this gallery and it's, the ceiling is 30 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do you get all that up there? It's just, yeah. And then they've got, three of those levels. And
Mm-hmm.
then you get to the top of that roof and you're like, oh my gosh,
The
you
engineering
couldn't make
incredible.
that. Yeah, you couldn't make that building today.
Mhm.
I don't think that skill exists.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
beautiful. So we got to
Yeah.
hike to the very, very top of it
Yeah.
on these very tiny spiral staircases that
Which brings us to, I think, an important point that we should make about accessibility.
yeah, there is no accessibility in Europe, and especially in these old castles or arenas or these old towns. There's no elevators. These stairs are so small and steep, and sometimes there's no railings.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot. It was even a lot for us. And so we were talking about it a lot during the trip is these are the types of trips you really got to do when you're younger.
Mm-hmm.
Got to do the hard trips 1st.
Mm-hmm.
These river cruises, these itineraries where they go to in Europe are just not accessible. You cannot do this if you're physically unable to do
Mm-hmm.
a lot of walking and a lot of stairs.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to do it if you're in a wheelchair or you have crutches or a walker,
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. It's just, you have to be somewhat physically able-bodied.
Yeah. So a couple points from that is do things while you have your mobility.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is don't lose your mobility. stay in good shape so that you can experience things like that. Consistently, we had 10 and 15,000 step days, but that didn't take into account elevation.
Mm-mm.
A lot of those were climbing, up
lot
an
of
arena
stairs.
or up a spiral staircase or up a hill or things like that. So
Yeah.
anyway,
A lot of these cruise lines have tours that are less
mm-hmm.
physical.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes they might be a city tour by bus or a light walking tour, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So it's not like I'm saying every tour is this hard, but just know that these places are not accommodating to.
Yeah. I don't want to dissuade people
Yeah.
from seeing things that are interesting, going places and being active. But, if you really are limited in terms of your mobility,
Mhm.
just know that you're probably going to be doing, city walking tours, light walking tours, and what they call panoramic tours,
Mhm.
kind of a bus drive by to some of these things. Some of the buses can get to tops of these little hill towns.
Mhm. We digress. Let's get back to the itinerary.
Okay, back to we have an itinerary.
We'll be here for like 2 hours.
All right. So Tarascan and the environs were just wonderful.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then we come back on the ship and we sailed a nice 2-3 hours down to Arles.
Mm-hmm.
And we had an evening stroll down there. Part of the crew came with us,
Mm-hmm.
which was nice. And we had a tour guide.
Our crew was just phenomenal.
Best.
They were so fun to hang out with and really engaged. They all love their job.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they do to hire, develop, and retain their teams. Professionally, I'm curious, but they did a great job, and they're just so personable and smart, and they became very close friends. I think
the staff is just amazing. I don't know what they do, but they're doing something right.
Yeah. At the end of that little stroll, they took us to a beautiful hotel, and then they took us to a little courtyard and wined and dined us again. Wine and cheese. So
that was the theme of our whole.
Yes. And Arles has a beautiful arena that's still in use, and we walked by that, and they talked about this other kind of cultural phenomenon that they have there, which is the French bullfighting.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is different than Spanish bullfighting. Spanish bullfighting, the bull does not win ever. But in the French version, it's a game with the bull, and he's got like a little thread or something.
Got ribbons between his.
Yeah, and the objective is to grab that ribbon and not get gored by the bull. So the bull always gets out of the arena alive.
Yeah.
So that looked kind of fun. We didn't see one of those. Had we had the opportunity, I would.
Yeah.
It looks like a lot of fun.
That was a good day.
And
then we ended the day taking a photo in front of the river with the staff and all the staff members. Then the next day we were still in Arles, and some of us chose the Le Beau de Provence tour.
Look who can speak French.
I can speak that one.
Le Beau de Provence. So it's a little medieval town up on a hill. Again, beautiful. Great place to to buy lavender
Lots
and
of
things
lavender.
like that. That's another
It's a big thing.
product of Provence that they're very proud of is their lavender.
Another vista up there that you can take wonderful photos of all the vineyards below. And then afterwards, we walked down and got to go to this old limestone quarry, which I've done back in March, but this is Gary's first opportunity to see it. And it's something, it's indescribable. You could try to describe it and we'll try to do it here, but it doesn't do it justice. You really got to see it for yourself. It is the coolest thing. It's an interesting way to reuse an old quarry.
Yeah. We say quarry, but it's enclosed. So you walk into it and it has a roof. So it's not an open pit quarry.
Correct.
It's
in a
it's
hill.
almost like a mine. So you go in and the ceiling, I don't know, 30, 40 feet tall.
Oh, at least, yeah.
Yeah, it's massive as you go in there and just these huge open spaces. And whoever figured that out, I'm so grateful that they figured out to use it in an artistic way, because what I would have thought to do would, hey, let's do the history of limestone or the history of this quarry. Exactly. And it would have been the most boring, never visited site near Le Beau. But now it's a thing. People love it. And there's a ton of people in there, but still it's very approachable. And they've just got these beautiful light shows, art shows, really. I'd say call it an art show. A projected art show on the walls, floor. Just a tremendous opportunity. Yeah,
so pretty.
Yeah, you have the
with music
to go there. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and they have places to sit down if you want to sit, but you can just, and the floor is really pretty level. Yeah, but it's easy. That one's a little bit more manageable.
Yeah, wonderful experience there. And then they basically have a loop, kind of call it a movie that you watch, and I think it's like 20 or 40 minutes. Yeah,
that was a great opportunity to do that again. I'm so glad that you could see it.
Yeah,
I was so excited about it.
Thank you for going back.
Couldn't describe it, so that was great. So then after lunch, we went to a town, or a city, I should say, called Aix-en-Provence, or X as the locals call it.
X is spelled AIX.
But they pronounce it X, like your ex-boyfriend or ex-wife. And we had a city walking tour there as well. Didn't really see inside of too many things. It was more of a overall walking tour and not very long. So that was interesting. I wouldn't say that's my highlight, my favorite city, but to each their own.
Yeah. It definitely had a brand. You know, people go there because that's where kind of the rich people go, and it has a nice lifestyle. And we actually had a nice wine and cheese tasting experience there again. And it was
another wine cheese.
And they were all good. What can I say? But there's nothing like iconic to go see there. It's more to, be seen and go to restaurants. So it's
lots of restaurants.
It seemed like a very comfortable place to be, but there wasn't anything super
interesting or anything like that. Yeah. But it was great. I'm glad we did it. And then we headed back to the ship, and this night was our special dinner on board that we signed up for. So on Riverside, they have a private dining room that you can sign up for, and it's an extra cost. And it's a private 8 to 10 people, depending on who signs up. 7-course wine and food paired extravaganza. It was amazing. The chef comes out and explains each course. The sommelier is there to explain every wine and the story behind the wine that he's paired with that food. And they're just small bites, so it wasn't a huge amount. When I say 7 courses, it wasn't too much. And it was so beautiful, and it was just so comfortable and so much fun. And coincidentally, it was just us 6 that signed up for it. Nobody else on the ship did. So it was nice. It was like our own little private dinner.
They consulted with us before they made the menu.
Make sure that we...
that it wasn't just like, here's our set thing that we do. They said, here's what we're thinking, and what do you like, and anything you don't like. So, I mean, because it's expensive, so they want to make sure that they nailed it. And boy, they really did. It's just really over the top. And,
there was customized menus on each of our place settings.
Yes.
So that you can see the menu. It had our name on it. and that showed all the wines. And it was about maybe 5-6 pages long.
Yes.
And then they take it and they said, we'll have a copy in your cabin for you tonight.
Yes. Yeah. That was
So
a
nice.
very nice touch.
So
I
you
took
didn't
a
have to hold
picture
it.
of that and sent it to my wine snob friends, and they were impressed
Yeah.
by the wines. And
Yeah.
all the wines were worldwide on this one. It wasn't just French wines. They were very impressed. So they did not skimp on the wines for sure.
It was fun to get dressed up and have a special evening like
Yeah.
that. And then the next day, we did sign up for the kayaking excursion to the Pont de Garde. Wish we had done it, but we were tired. So
Some days you just hit the travel wall.
Yeah.
I think everybody just has a day, and I think that was our day. You're just like, I don't care how attractive it is. Just like, I need a moment.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
Gary and I slept in, and the others, one couple did the e-bike around the Pont de Garde, which is a Roman aqueduct, about 20 minutes away or so. And the other couple, I think, just did a walking tour or something. I can't remember exactly what they ended up choosing.
Yeah.
So we all kind of scattered to the winds, but it was a very lovely, relaxing morning for me.
It was. But afterwards, kind of looking at the pictures of Pont de Garde, regretted a little bit that I missed it, because the aqueduct is a massive structure. So it's a bridge with the aqueduct on top of it. And it's just...
We'll have another opportunity, I'm sure.
We'll see another aqueduct.
It was a little bit of FOMO that morning, but sleep was more important.
Yeah.
But then in the afternoon, we got to go to Châteauneuf-du-Pape again.
And we don't need to spell that one.
No, we're not going to spell that one. Châteauneuf-du-Pape.
But what does Châteauneuf-du-Pape mean?
The new Pope.
The castle of the new Pope.
The castle of the new Pope?
Yeah, okay. Chateau.
Oh, gotcha. All right. Yep. Very good wine is what I think it means.
Yes, that's the association, is that this is just one of the premier appellations regions.
Yeah, in the Rhone Valley.
Yeah, that some of the most coveted wines come from. And what I learned is one of the reasons is because their vines are super old. Here in the States, sometimes we hear, or maybe it's just me, my understanding is that the oldest vines are not always the best, and they produce less. We tasted wines. I think that they said their vines are like 60 years old
or more. Yeah,
yeah, that was a really good experience. And the ground. I know they talk about terroir, but just looking at what the ground looks like, what these things come out of, it just looks like a jumble of river rocks.
And that's exactly what it is. Yeah. Gigantic river rocks everywhere.
How did you even get a plow in there to make a hole or get a shovel? That would be the worst kind of digging.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a very unique and peculiar
environment. Like the ground looks nothing like you see anywhere else.
Yeah. It's not like dirt. Yeah. You just see rocks. It's like, how's that thing growing out of rocks? Yeah.
That was great. So then we got to do some wine tasting, of course, and then finish off our evening with another great dinner. And then that was our last night on the ship. So we closed down the bar.
Yes. Yes, we did.
So that was a lot of fun. And then the sad day, the next day, getting off the ship. We all scattered to the winds. And one couple went to Marseille. Another couple went to Nice. And we stayed in Avignon for a couple more days, which we got to get in a lot of steps the next 2 days.
Yes, boy, did we. Boy, did we. So why don't you tell folks why Avignon is important or well-known?
I don't know. Why is Avignon?
Oh, because that was the seat of the French Pope. So there's a Pope's Palace. So it's a walled city. The Pope put a wall around the city, I think in like the 1300s, and built this thing. They call it the Pope's Palace. Let's be honest, this was a military fortification. It is a huge pile of rock, enormous, and obviously built for war or defense. Yeah, but anyway, tremendous edifice. And again, one of those great places to walk, but challenging, very challenging to get around inside.
And that is another place where I would suggest going with a tour. There may not be a private tour, but it might be a small group tour, because I did the tour in March with a group and I learned far more about the palace than I did when you and I went. And they just give you this little tablet and it didn't quite work and it didn't really say anything. I remember a lot more history from the tour guide in March than walking around with that tablet.
Do tell.
But no, obviously that I didn't retain. Um, but it was interesting to hear a lot about the different popes and the struggle between France and Italy, and then the war coming through, World War II, and they use that as barracks and the history behind that. And then the building was in derelict condition, and then them bringing it back to life, but not every single room. They left some original so you could see what it looked like before they fixed it back up again. But it's just a massive building. I mean, it's just huge. And again, you need to be able to do steps because there's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good point. There's so many instances where you can be in an interesting looking place, but you just don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
You need some historical context. It's like, why is this thing here? Why is it not there? Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's this beautiful garden up on a hill. So we walked up to this garden, beautiful viewpoint, overlooks the river. And then they have their own bridge that has been destroyed through history that you can walk out on. So we went over there to the bridge, and you walk up these steps and get to the top of this bridge, and it's not complete to the other side.
Yeah, it's like about halfway across, and it's an iconic and beautiful bridge. It's Pont d'Avignon. So yeah, we went to all the sites. We saw that park. We saw the Pope's Palace. We did the Pont de Garde.
And then we got on a local bus.
Yes, because you had bought a day pass.
Yeah, I did like a 24-hour city pass, so it gave us entrance to the Pope's Palace and the Pont de Garde and a couple other attractions, and it also gave us entrance to another castle which you can see across the river when you're in the Pope's Palace or on the Pont de Garde. That you can see this other castle across the way. So we walked to the tourist office and we started talking about the city pass, and they said take the local city bus, and we're like, I've never done that before. So she explained it to the best of her ability, and we did it. So we went and walked, and we walked up to this castle, but we were getting kind of tired at this point. I mean, there was a lot of steps and a lot of stairs, and it was a hot day. So by about 3 or 4 o'clock, we were like, okay, we're done.
Yes.
So we took the city bus back and had a nice dinner. Oh, is that when we went for pizza?
Yes, we went to, I can highly recommend it. It's called Pinocchio. Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Called Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were at that point done with French food.
Yeah. We needed a break.
And I just looked on my phone. I keep a record of my steps. That day, I believe it was 18,000 steps.
I believe it. I think mine was like 2021 or something.
Yeah.
Like
my tracker is a little skimpier on steps than the iPhone.
Yeah, that was a lot. So
yeah, we walked a lot, and it started to get warm. So, which is a reminder, this was, I think, the perfect time to go. You don't want to go to Provence when it's too hot. They're well known for becoming very hot, dry summers. And I think we were there in like the last week or so before things were really going to turn. I think it would have been a less pleasant experience if we had been sweating in all the different places we went to.
True.
I was either wearing just a t-shirt or a t-shirt and a pullover the whole time. And I don't think we wore shorts.
No, you and I didn't, but other people did.
Yeah.
We had some really nice weather. So I think we only had one day that was kind of like a little drizzly, and that was it.
Yeah.
And and then the next day we were in Avignon. Thank goodness it got cooler. There was a little cloud cover and it was much cooler.
Yeah. So that was the last part of May that we went. So if you're thinking about going, that's certainly a good time to go. You had been in March, like
I was there at the end of March, and it was a bit colder and a bit more rainy.
Colder and blustery.
But it wasn't terrible, but it was definitely, there were no sunny days.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it wasn't terrible.
So we did all the cultural things in Avignon, and then what did we do our final day?
No,
in Avignon?
We had a day after that. We took the train to Nîmes. We took the train to Nîmes. Sorry.
Nîmes. I believe they say Nîmes. And how do you spell that?
Nimes.
Yes.
So I always think of it as Nîmes or Nims, but it's pronounced Nîmes. And so we took the train, which we're much more comfortable doing. It was easier.
Yeah. Hard to get lost on the train.
Yeah. So we just took the train out there. And that was a great city. That was another city I think I would spend a little bit more time in.
I could hang out in Nîmes. I think that would be a good jumping off spot. Arles was the same way. But yeah, let's talk about Nîmes. What did you like about Nîmes?
The arena. So the arena was pretty well intact for the most part. They still use it again for concerts. They were setting
Yeah.
something up, but the tour itself was a little audio guide, but it was really well done. And it made you walk around the whole arena and up the steps and up to the top. And it was really fascinating. That was a highlight. I really like that.
I learned so much, and that was one that was unguided, but you
Mhm.
just had an audio program that you listened to, but it would take you step by step throughout, and it was very well done. And you had different selections of different languages. So yeah, I learned so much about that.
Yeah.
So they still use it. They mentioned a number of modern artists who continue to play there, including Elton John had played there.
That would be such a cool concert.
That'd be the bomb,
Yes.
right? To see something like that. And then they still do the bullfights and other kinds of historical pageants and things. They also had quite a lot of good information about the gladiators themselves, because the gladiators, this was an active gladiator arena from, I think, the first to the third century. And they talked about the different kinds of gladiators. There's different kinds of weapons and outfits and kind of personas that they're supposed to have. It's not just a free for all, just grab anything you want. It's a very prescribed sport, and I did not realize it, but until Rome was at the height of its power, being a gladiator was a profession. It was a chosen profession. You say, I want to do that, then you sign a contract and you're in. It's like enlisting. But it was all free will. No one was coerced to do it. But later it just became, with the fall of Rome, more of a just get people off the streets and slug it out.
Yeah.
And see what happens. But anyway, yeah, I digress. But that was beautiful and very informative. And it's right there in the center of the city. Nîmes is a super walkable city. We got a lot of good steps in on that day. Yeah.
And then the last day was another, because we didn't get enough in the last 11 days of that trip
of wine.
We went wine tasting.
Right.
But this time we did not only Chateau Neuf de Pape, we did 2 other regions. So it was neat to see the difference between the 3 regions.
Yes.
And other regions we had never heard about in that Rhone Valley. And we're going to massacre these towns, but it was like Gorgondas or something, Gorgondas or
Girondas. Yeah, my wine snob friends, if they ever listen to this,
Oh,
are just
sorry.
gonna roll their eyes.
Oh,
It's
my
like, Gary,
goodness.
you southern fried. Yeah, I think it was Girondas, and the other was
Eau de Venise.
Baume de Venise.
Baume de Venise. Yeah.
So describe the tour. So this was a private tour.
It wasn't a private tour. We had 6 of us. So
Semi-private tour.
Just wasn't you and me, but 2 other lovely couples were with us.
Yes.
That we didn't know.
Who became friends. So,
absolutely.
At some point it's private.
Led by a tour guide. And it was great. We went to one winery, did the tasting. It was phenomenal. And then he took us to the second one in Baume de Venise and blew me away. The wines were phenomenal. The location was great. The person explaining the wines was wonderful and very educational. And then we went into this back room, and the tour guide had brought a picnic lunch for all of us. And all the foods were from local farms that he knew, or his father's chickens or whatever. So we had like hard-boiled eggs. We had different tapenades on toast points. We had cheeses. We had cherries from his cherry tree. We had strawberries. It was just
I'm getting hungry again, like right now.
So good. And he was so nice, and it was a great tour.
Yeah.
And then we went out to Chateau Neuf de Pape for the last one, and saw some cellars and how they store their wines and the history of their wines, and did a wine tasting there too. So it was really good.
Yeah, what I also liked about that is that we drove from region to region, so you could really get a sense of, the soil here is different.
Yes.
Oh, the elevation here is different. Now I get why they're saying, the wind is important, because I believe it was Girondas that he said, yeah, it's very windy. And you get there and it's like, well, yes, it is.
It was really
very windy. And the reason is because it's got a big plain. It kind of rises up a little bit, but there's a huge plain to the north that has no barriers to it. So you just get all the wind. by driving around and seeing a couple other locations instead of just like dropping into one point. I got it connected for me geographically, what we were doing there.
And at that second winery, I liked that, and they had a display of the 4 different types of soils. I don't want to call it dirt because some of it wasn't dirt, but the limestone and the clay and the rock and that connected it for me. It's like, oh, that's what they're talking about. Yes. And it's at the different elevations.
Yeah. I am still not clear on what all the French labels mean. So that was not clear to me.
No.
But everybody says that they have the most complicated labels. So
if they didn't have such and such grape in it, you can't call it this, and it can't be a cru.
Oh, fun fact! Last like a little creepy fun fact was that Chateau Neuf de Pop place that we went to. One of the tastings we did, they had 13 different grapes in one bottle. And that's kind of the traditional way to make Chateau Neuf de Pop reds in that area, to have a lot of those grapes, and they grew all the grapes.
But that was unusual to have all 13. So in Chateau Neuf de Pop, to be a Chateau Neuf de Pop wine, you could only use those 13 grapes. And it's usually the GSM is what they called it, the Grenache, Syrah, or the Mourvedre.
Yeah. But look at this grape.
That information I will retain, but not about the popes.
Right.
But this one winery, it was unusual to use all 13 in one wine.
Yeah. Also, make sure if you go to Chateau Neuf de Pop, the Pope's like summer residence is up on the hill. So it's like, this is why they call it the new castle of the Pope, Chateau Neuf de Pop. It's a ruin. It got blown up by the Germans at the end of the World War II. There wasn't a lot left of it, so there's like a couple walls left, but it's so pretty.
So pretty.
We went there during the golden hour and took a lot of pictures just as the sun was going down. And it's just beautiful and romantic. And So
that ended our trip.
Yeah. Wonderful itinerary. I had zero expectations of what we're going to run into. I'd never been to France before. I had never been in this region. I just didn't know what to expect. But for me, it was really above and beyond. I mean, the food was amazing. The locations were interesting. There's so much Roman history. There's so much medieval history, French history. So it's just stimulating on a lot of levels. We really enjoyed it. So any other impressions from you?
Itinerary was just wonderful.
Yeah.
I would say it's a slower pace than if you do the Rhine or Danube or any of the other rivers, just because there's not a long distance to go. So you're going to have probably more overnights in some of these towns. So it's a little bit of a slower pace, not a lot of sailing during the day.
Yeah. And outside of Avignon and Lyon, the cities are not large. And I wouldn't even say Avignon is all that big. But then, it's a very different experience than if you're going to like Prague or Budapest or Amsterdam. Why don't you talk for a moment, just briefly, about the ship that we were on and some of the hotels that we stayed at? Maybe specifically because I think it was kind of iconic, the hotel that we stayed at in Lyon.
Yeah. This was the Riverside Ravel. So the ship name is Ravel, and the cruise line was the Riverside Luxury Cruises cruise line. And this is their normal, typical single width ship. I think it holds, off the top of my head, somewhere around like 110 people. Not a huge amount compared to, say, Vikings 180. So it's a more intimate experience. And their cabin categories are unlike anybody else on the river. They have an owner suite that's like 800 square feet or 1,000 square feet. I mean, it's just huge. The Ravel suite, which one of our traveling companions was in, has a living room with an electric fireplace. And then you walk down this hall, there's 2 bathrooms, the beautiful bedroom, amazing walk-in closet. I mean, this place is just huge. I think it was like 700 square feet. I mean, it's just bigger than what you would find on other river cruise ships. And that's why I really love this cruise line. And this is their normal size ship on most of the rivers. And then the next level down, our other couple friends were in, was still really well appointed, still a good size, double vanities in the bathroom, beautiful shower, and another walk-in closet. So, which is unusual, very comfortable. And we were in the lead-in category. Again, very similar, just smaller. One vanity in the bathroom, and then the room size was just a little smaller. But everything was very comfortable. The aesthetics on board are just beautiful. It's so current and so luxurious without being pretentious. It was so comfortable. And then the staff on board, we talked about them before, but they were phenomenal. Over and beyond. I mean, they knew what you like to drink at lunch. They had it ready for you. They knew our names.
And very friendly, just, wanted to kind of hang out with you a little bit. One of the other things I noticed that was different about this ship than others is how well appointed their top deck is.
Yeah, their sun deck.
Yeah, their sun deck has real couches and comfortable chairs and lots of, substantial seating, which is different than a lot of other cruise lines. It's not bad. And I'll get to why here in a second, but they are typically more like lounge chairs. They're kind of light and maybe have a net on them or something like that, but they're like, something you put around a pool. Very light and easy to move. The reason they do that is because they have to clear those decks and keep everything low when you go under a bridge for safety and things like that. So ours had a very substantial and comfortable seating area that we really enjoyed. They also had a bar up there that was just beautiful. So if you wanted to be up there and enjoy, as you're sailing along, or if you're just, import.
Oh, and I forgot about the green eggs, the barbecue. I forgot we did do a barbecue.
We did a wonderful barbecue.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Forgot to mention that on our itinerary, and we did that in Vivier.
Yes, that was in Vivier.
They did a barbecue with the
up top, and they had steaks and
huge shrimp,
huge tiger shrimp. That is that a lobster? No, that's a shrimp.
Yeah.
What? Looks like a lobster tail.
But anyway, then everything comes down, and the bar comes down. Everything comes down when they have to go under the bridge. So a caveat is, a lot of the times that's going to be closed because the bridges are really low.
Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind, that sometimes you think, oh, we're going to be sailing, I'd like to be up top. Well, you can't if there's a bridge involved, and there often is. And there were a lot of bridges on this particular itinerary. But
there were spaces up front on the nose of the ship and in the back of the ship that you can go outside. So there still was a little space to be outside during that time, but it's mostly indoors, in the lounge or in your cabin.
A couple other amenities to note is that they had what I found to be a really good gym. It had several free weights, and it had a rower on there and a couple bikes. If you had two people in there, you'd be good to go. Three, it's a little tight.
Yeah.
One of them's on the bike.
Sure.
But that was a very good amenity. They also
spa. Did you see that?
No, I did not.
I didn't actually get a spa appointment, but I did go in there and look, and it is beautiful. It's something you would find in a 5-star hotel.
Oh, wait a minute. So the amenity that I didn't go into the spa, but the amenity I was thinking about was the laundry. They did have a self-serve laundry. You can certainly send out your laundry, and that's fine for a fee. Or I think if you get a higher level category, that it might be included.
Yeah, the Ravel suite had unlimited laundry.
Yeah, which is a nice thing. So you can do that. But yeah, there's very nice do-it-yourself laundry with a washer and a dryer. And so,
which is unusual on a river cruise ship.
Yeah. Okay. So I interrupted you. Bring us home and tell us about the hotel where we started off. So specifically in Lyon.
In Lyon was amazing, and it was the Intercontinental. It is a former hospital, and it's a pretty iconic building. It's a pretty historical building. It's a 5-star hotel, and it's really beautiful, and some shopping and everything. But it's right there on the river. Wonderful restaurant. Beautiful bar that it was in part of the chapel of the hospital. Yeah. And a big, huge dome at the top. It was pretty.
Yeah. But
we went there often.
we did. It was just beautiful. Just a nice place to sit. And you're just like, am I here?
Yeah.
Is this real?
It's really
Yeah,
nice.
it's just off the charts.
So I highly recommend that because we did go look at some of the other hotels in town, and this definitely was the best hotel
Yeah.
in town.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's other options and different price points, but
it's also one of the most distinct pieces of architecture along the river. People will point it out. Yeah. And then do you want to just mention briefly the hotel?
In Avignon, it wasn't anything fancy. It was just a nice place to lay your head, but it was clean and they were super nice there. We had an outdoor patio for the bar area.
Do you want to mention the name?
Yeah, it's a Mercury is what they were calling it, or Mercure, MECURE. So it was back in this corner off the main street. So it was quiet, which was nice. Easy to get to everything. We're very centrally located. Then couldn't ask for anything more, but we did find a couple other hotels kind of halfway down the main street there that were just beautiful. So if you're looking for a 5-star hotel, I have those too. That looked beautiful. And I think they were even a Michelin starred restaurant in them. So those would be a good option.
Yeah, it was just Avignon was a comfortable city. I think I would have liked to spend a little bit more time in Arles, not to take anything away from the other cities, but we just didn't have a lot of time there. But overall, wow, what an
knocked it
experience.
out of the park. Yeah,
it just really made me appreciate Provence. I think we're going to feel more comfortable looking at wine labels and at least, knowing some of these other areas at a very high level, it makes me feel more informed about the world. I feel more informed about the history of that region. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, they just knocked it out of the park. This was such a wonderful experience. It was wonderful to go back with you so you can experience it. I've been to France several times in my life and in my past career. So it was neat to see it through your eyes. And the other two couples that we traveled with were just lovely and friendly and fun and just made it a nice different experience. But to experience this new cruise line, because Riverside is new with the former Crystal Cruise Line ships, was such a neat experience. And I see why they're getting so many accolades and so many people are talking about them and getting the word out that this is just a wonderful cruise line. Really 5-star, but comfortable. Like someone was saying, millionaire casual.
Yes.
Felt very obviously I'm not a millionaire, but I felt very comfortable.
Yes.
It just was spectacular all around.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of, they shoulda, or we shoulda, or anything. It was great.
Yeah. So just do me one favor and thank you for taking me on this particular excursion. Really enjoyed it. But do me one favor. Put me on the list if you find another river cruise with Riverside. I would
100%.
I would love to do
We've
that.
actually been talking about that. I think I have my eye on the Mozart, which is their twice as wide ship. They don't want to be called double wide. No woman wants to be called double wide.
Well, it's either that or trailers, right?
So it's their twice as wide ship on the Danube is the Mozart, and I have my eye on that. I think that's going to be the next opportunity.
Well, I'm ready to go.
Maybe next year I'm done this for this year. 3 and 3 months was a lot.
Oh, come on. Phoenix will get so hot, you'll be ready to get out of here no matter what.
But that was great.
Well, anyway, thank you. This was really a great experience. I would 100% recommend this to anybody who hasn't been to this region of the world or is just curious about river cruises. The big ones for river cruising are, of course, the Rhine and the Danube. And those are certainly wonderful. This is a little bit more low key, but certainly a great place to go.
Yeah. If you love food, which I think we all do, and love wine, such a great itinerary and a wonderful cruise line to do it on.
Excellent.
So thank you so much for joining us. This has been a wonderful episode talking about this experience. Join us again next time. Grab your passport and let's go.
Let's go.
Thanks for listening to Passport Required. Please be sure and join the Silverleaf Travel Facebook page so that we can connect with you. It is also a great place to share your own travel tips, experiences, and wisdom with the Silverleaf Travel community.
If you got something out of this episode, we would love it if you would subscribe and also give us a rating and review. We always want to get better, and we will read all of your comments and suggestions for topics so that we can make this podcast the best resource possible. My name is Gary Covert.
And I'm Kim Covert. Thanks for listening, and thank you for being a part of the Silverleaf Travel community.